I'm Kerry Rowett, and this is the Align and Attract podcast, helping you to create your version of an aligned business. Let's dive into today's episode. Today's episode is a part of the Your Aligned Business series, where I interview inspiring people about their aligned businesses and the choices that they have made to make their business beautifully aligned to them, to their values, their goals, their priorities, and how their businesses may have evolved over the years. Sara Brooke is a teacher, a writer, and a ceremonialist who supports individuals and groups to come home to their true nature and to reset their connection and belonging to the earth. She works with people worldwide, guiding them to connect to their authentic soul medicine through her one-on-one sessions, powerful group containers, and transformative guided rituals. Sara's work weaves together energy healing, earth wisdom, and subtle plant medicine. She loves inspiring people to reclaim their own power, intuition, and authentic energy so they can create richly fulfilling lives of meaning and beauty. Sara and I have been connected through our businesses and also personally because we are friends for at least 10 years, and we've both worked with each other over that time. I think you're going to love hearing more about Sara's journey. She is really intuitive, very connected to herself, and as you'll hear, her particular business journey has been very much around alignment and not so much around strategy. It's super inspiring, and I cannot wait to hear what you think. Welcome, Sara. It is so beautiful to have you here with me today.
Thank you, Kerry. I'm super excited to be here.
So let's get straight into it. Tell me how you got into business in the first place and what your business looked like in those early days.
So I've been in business now for 13 years, this year's been the 13th year. When I very first started, I started doing one-on-one Reiki sessions and small group meditation circles. And when I look back on them now, they were never really straight meditation circles. I was obviously teaching people how to meditate, but there was always certain themes that we would be coming together with and certain topics that there would be a meditation and then a little bit something else. Now, in those early days, I was lucky if I was even getting a client a month. And with my meditation classes, I was lucky if I was getting one or two participants that would come to the weekly classes. And I had my two brothers, bless them, were my main students. And then it was always like, oh, I've got someone that I don't know here. And then, really slowly and steadily, it took a good couple of years for it to build up. One, for where I had full meditation classes, and two, where it even got to the point where I had more than a handful of clients a week. And then it has grown and evolved massively over that time. But at the beginning, it was slow and steady. And I think I'm really happy to be transparent about that, because I think sometimes when people are starting their businesses, particularly in our industries, they can get really defeated when there's lots of clients or students coming, or they can compare themselves to others and all of the things that you actually talk about in your awesome Align and Attract book, which is why I love it, kind of the hurdles that we all go through when we're starting business. But yeah, in full transparency, it was slow to begin with.
And it's really useful, like you say, for people to remember that and, to hear that from other people because, lots of people would look at your business now and see you with like fully booked
Yeah.
workshops and all the different things. And it didn't start out that way. And so at the start, you weren't full time in your business either, were you?
No, I wasn't full time. So I was full time working in corporate as a marketing manager and account manager. And that was also back 13 years ago. It really wasn't like social media was only slightly coming on. Like, I think my first listing was on natural therapy pages, and that was where I was getting people coming in as kind of like that wellness hub. But there was no Instagram. I think Facebook might have started, but there was no business stuff on Facebook at that point, really, from what I recall.
I remember it did start fairly early, like it was probably around 2009, maybe 2010 that I
Yeah.
got on there, but it wasn't, initially like a place that you really prioritized spending time.
No, it was a
It
place
actually
to
wasn't
stalk
that
down.
social.
No, it was a place to stalk down people from your past, and then there was kind of that mass thing of, "Oh, what's this person from high school doing?" But it wasn't a, networking platform and what it's now turned into, which is just, poof, massive.
Quite different. So, talk us through what your business actually looks not like now. And what I really want to know is in how do you now feel like it has become like beautifully aligned to you, your lifestyle, and your goals?
Definitely. I feel like I'm turning 40 this year, so I started my business obviously in my mid to late 20s. So it's been interesting watching and obviously experiencing the evolution. I feel like my business has matured as I have matured. Obviously, there's been lots of different trainings and modalities that I've picked up along the way, but I think something really magical kind of happens for people like do our type of work when we get to that 8 year 10 year mark. There's like a just like a pinnacle of experience where it's like, all right, I've learned all these different modalities, but now I've seen hundreds of hours of clients or run you know hundreds of different circles to start to understand what are the similar themes that I keep seeing? What are people commonly coming to me for that is unique and more niched? And I know there can be a lot of pressure when people start business to be like, what's your niche? What's your niche? But I personally think it takes years to actually find and develop what your niche is. So for me, it was around that 8 to 10 year mark I started to see, oh, hang on, there's really solid themes of why people are coming to me. It's women ready to come into their hearts, ready to be more authentic, ready to set boundaries, and ready to do womb work was a real theme, and really ready to come home to the earth and the seasons and the cycles and come more into their organic self as opposed to who we've all been told to be by the world. And so in many ways, I guess there's a similarity between you and I, what we do, but it's just a different approach in terms of alignment and helping women come into their heart and their soul alignment in their lives. And so that has then flown through my business in a really beautiful way. So over the years, I've let go of really amazing, incredible modalities that I think had their time and place. But I got to a point with them where I was finding that they were constricting me because I was getting all this other information coming in. And so someone would come for a Reiki, or someone would come for a belief system session, or gosh, all of the lots of different crazy that I've done over the years, and then they'd be expecting a certain thing, and then I'm like, oh, I have to having this conversation of, you've come here for this, but I'm really feeling that this would be more beneficial. So what I then saw, and I think it was through conversations with you and the alignment process as well, was like, I need to let go of the modality markers and really brand things in a way that feels very expansive for me, which is then when I rebranded all of the one-on-one work to soul medicine sessions, because that gave me the freedom that a client would come, we would work with their intention, and I would then be free to work with my full toolkit of stuff that I've been properly trained in, as well as really tuning in and working with my intuition and with the client's higher self and intuition to go, this is how I can best serve you based on all of my experience and what I'm feeling for you in that moment. And then the same thing started to obviously happen with the group work. I was like, okay, I'm ready to let go of things like I taught chakra dance for a few years, loved it, but then just felt, okay, no, there's something else that's now coming through. That's when I started the ritual nights and really marking the wheel of the year gateways with the equinoxes, the solstice. Just started to witness the awesome magic that would happen in those spaces when community would gather on those marker days. And it was a real activation of remembrance for me, of just remembering in my DNA the ways that humans would gather in these points. So that was a like a calling of, I guess, ancestry wisdom, human collective wisdom, as well as things that I'd been taught and gathered along the way.
So that was
And just
you really starting to tap into your own cultural heritage, wasn't it? As
definitely,
well.
Definitely. And I definitely went through a stage when that was awakening up of, cultural appropriation, where I was going to things and taking on things where I was like, oh, this is the only visible thing I can see of that. So therefore, that must be it. And then over the years, thinking, no, 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 hang on. And then as more of my own deeper work took place, connecting into my lineages and that coming, and that's also really amplified, obviously, the power of my work and has helped a really organic alignment with clients and students that have either got similar ancestry or just similar patterns that they're all journeying through that they're ready to come and experience. So it's been a beautiful organic blossoming really into my own authenticity. And the more authentic that I become, the more authentic my work becomes. And actually, the easier it is to attract the right people because it's very transparent. It's like, this is it, and the right people will come, and the people that aren't for me won't be interested or just won't book in. They'll go elsewhere.
I have quite a few questions I want to ask you about this, but the first one I'm going to ask you is just to elaborate a little bit on your ancestry and cultural background, because you mentioned the cultural appropriation, and it'd be great if you just touched on like what is your ancestry and what does that look like with you
Yeah.
exploring that? Because I bet there's lots of people listening who are like, I do not want to appropriate other people's cultures either, but what is
Yes.
the process of going deeper with your own culture?
So for me, a simple thing of getting a DNA test done on ancestry can reveal a lot. I mean, that's not definitely spot on, but if you're someone that you haven't had other family members that have tracked family tree and things like that, and I certain family members have done a little bit of work for that with me, but not a lot. So the predominant for me, I am Australian. I was born in Australia. I'm like third generation Australian. My great grandparents were the ancestors of mine that immigrated to Australia from Ireland and Cornwall. So they're predominantly from UK, Ireland, Scotland, and European heritage, from what I can gather. And obviously, because I work a lot within the spirit realms, I'm also talking to spirit based ancestors, and that's where I've done a lot of the work, as well as connecting with the spirits of the land that I'm on in Australia and doing that work too, and helping to kind of integrate, okay, I'm going to really honor the land that I'm on, perhaps being one of the first ancestors of my lineage that have done that work. And one of the teachers that I can really have deep gratitude for is one of my mentors, Sharon Bolt, because this is what her work's all about, coming into alignment with your magical lineages of what's actually authentic to you, doing a lot of forgiveness work and healing work if we have harmed other lineages or other cultures in our path to try and find ourselves. Because I think for many of us, we're like orphans that are disconnected from the earth because of our ancestors and what they'd been focusing on, or immigrating from different lands. And so we're all just kind of trying to fumble our ways back home. And of course, and it was definitely the case for me, you make mistakes along the way, and that's okay. But then when the awareness starts to come in of being able to course correct, it's so well worth it for so many different reasons.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to ask you a more specific question about the structure of your business. So, you have touched on the different types of things that you've offered over the years. So, what is the structure of your business now in terms of what it is that you actually offer? And I know that for you, this is quite fluid. So, alignment is such a key thing for you. Like, you will
Yeah.
be constantly tuning in and checking in. And so the structure of your business, certainly in the time I've known you, which is, I don't know, 10 years or so, like it has
Yeah.
made numerous changes. But what does it look like now?
At the moment, and it's so perfect that we're having this conversation. It's going through another growth and evolution, and I think anyone that is in business after 2020, they were all going through these adjustments of what that looks like. So last year I moved my one-on-one sessions all online, so they were either on Zoom or I do them via distance, including the ceremonies that I run. And I once I moved to that, I was like, it just feels like it's time now. They are permanently staying online, so I'm not going back to in-person one-on-one sessions. And then I have my in-person ceremonies that I still do in Melbourne, and so I often will do those seasonally, and they're for small intimate groups of about 10, 15, where we'll work with a certain plant, or it'll be in the theme of the equinox. And then I also run my plant pods, which are month-long journeys, and there's one coming up that will be for 8 weeks, where I'm guiding predominantly men, but predominantly women, but in some of them men and women, to be able to instill a certain daily practice that's helping them towards a theme of growth and evolution. And those have really been the evolution of everything that I've been working on in the last 10 years, being able to be packaged up in this way, in the most effective way that I can see for the participants, to really make some beautiful change, to come home to their authentic nature, and also to come home to Mother Earth in a way that is authentic to them.
And you've already touched on this, but this is a big thing that's happened for you with your work, isn't it? That increasingly your work is unlinked from specific modalities and is
Yeah.
very much based on your own intuition and your own guidance. So the plant pods are a really great example of that. I
Mm,
wonder if you could explain just a little bit more about that, because it's something that a lot of people, they won't have seen this type of offering before. And I think that's really inspiring for all of us to think about
yeah.
how can we offer our own work if you feel called to do that in your own unique way, or if you do feel called to offer something in a unique way, just this is an example of how it can work incredibly well.
Definitely. And in full transparency, it's been super scary and really vulnerable offering this workout to my community, because it feels so important to my heart. I feel like, oh, I'm finally getting exactly the thing that I'm here to be in service to. And I said to some of the participants in one of my current ones, we're working with hibiscus and the bees, and it's supporting women to really come into their queen energy. And I admitted to them, I'm like, it even feels weird sometimes me accepting money for it. And this is, again, probably just a money block as well, but because it just feels so on purpose for me and natural and fluid and flowing. So that really, as I'd mentioned, was an evolution of years of work. So starting with running circles, running seasonal events, watching what would happen in those spaces, some of it very fluid and intuitive, some of it based on training that I'd received from other practitioners on, basic counseling skills of how to hold space. I have done a lot of work with Sharon over the last years of really learning how to work with spirit and plant spirits in a space, because that actually does require skill and training. And so from the work that I'd learned along the way, and then very importantly, integrated and embodied for myself, then was like, now I get it. And this is part of who I am. I feel ready to be able to share this with others. And the pods really came from me looking at common themes that were coming up in a lot of my one on one clients. And so often I would get this alignment attraction coming in, where I'd get a group of people coming through where they're like, this is my intention. And I'm like, there's like 8 people that I've worked with over the last month have got the same intention. And then I'd see things transpiring, or certain processes would come in those sessions. And I'm like, I'm doing the same thing. This now means that there's the collective is ready for this work, so I can design a group experience. And I'm fascinated and obsessed with working with groups, because there's just this power that comes together when people are sharing the similar intention, the magic that happens when we're journeying with people going through the same things, of being seen and validated and encouraged, of, oh, wow, it's not just me. And so being able to weave that for a group, and just absolutely trusting always that the right people will come together into my group events, that's been a muscle that I've developed over the years. So the pods are that. So it's first and foremost a space and a permission for people to really tune more deeply into themselves, to work on their intuition. And then there's little things that I'll invite people to do that might only take 5 or 10 minutes per day, but when that's done consistently, there's huge changes.
And you do have the group experiences as well at
Yes,
certain points along the journey. So there's the group coming together
definitely.
over calls, and then there's like those daily
Yeah,
practices. So it's just all woven together, like you said, with all of the unique experiences you've had over the years. And then you're really constructing this quite unique journey, which they
yeah,
tend to be about a month, don't they? That the group will travel together
Yeah, so
for.
there's the Lotus one, which its theme is really around intuition and connection to the higher self. Hibiscus is for women really wanting to come home to their bodies, to heal body image issues and all the stuff that as women we're carrying that blocks us from our creative power. And so that's working with Hibiscus, and she's a really fiery spirit. So we're also working with passion and sexuality and a whole lot of other themes within that. And then I've also started working on the Rose journey, which is going to have a very different energy to it as well, but is of this similar theme. So people can either do one experience, or what I'm finding is when participants do one, they're like, oh my God, that was amazing. Please sign me up for the next one. So I think over the last 13 years, I've built up a base of clients and students that trust me. I've already built a relationship and a rapport with them. So when it's come to sharing authentic work, it's been quite easeful because they're ready to go on that next journey of growth. And I've felt safe to go, all right, I'm going to release this. And I know that this is going to hit for some of my clients because that's exactly where they're at. But it does take courage. But I think first and foremost for me, and the advice I would give for anyone wanting to design their own program is, have you embodied and integrated that yourself? Because when that happens, it's much more easy to align to clients and students. And I find when I'm talking to other practitioners that are designing something or putting something out there, if I can feel in their field that they haven't integrated it, they will struggle to get people in that experience.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that's a very key part of alignment and is sometimes overlooked, that really walking your talk. And I do
Yeah.
want to ask you a little bit more about attracting clients, because it's something you have been able to do incredibly well over the years, is attract groups of people to your offerings. So
Mm.
when you do Reiki trainings, they will fill. You'll book out your these online plant pods. Again, it's like this completely unique thing, but you've had people who will just, yep, trust you and
Yeah.
join and come on board for the experience. You also do is on, in-person workshops
Yeah.
and ritual nights and things like that. And those will, like, everything will tend to just book out, and often very
Yeah.
quickly. So you
Yeah.
have shared that part of that is having
Mm.
built this rapport and established this trust with
Yeah.
your existing audience. Is there anything else you can share with us about why you think that happens, or any advice you can give to other people? Be like, I would love to be able to attract more people to group experiences.
Yeah, I think for me, it was finding authentic ways to talk about my work rather than, showing up and doing a certain marketing technique or a strategy technique that maybe someone else had said, hey, this is a business model to follow. I've realized in reflection, and as you and I had talked about, my business runs 100% on alignment. I'm not strategy focused at all. And anytime I've gone down the path of too much strategy, for me, that tends to put me in positions where I might, not attract people or not attract the right people or put unnecessary pressure on myself. And so for me, it's taken years to get to this point. And I want to actually say that in full transparency too, because I know sometimes, my students and clients or other people just on social media have kind of, I feel this energy of, oh, kind of like overnight success, but it's not overnight success. It's like years in the making of building up a rapport. Um, but for me, it's been about alignment, and I've got you to thank for that. And also my dear Reiki master teacher, Martine. I remember when I was doing mastership, and it probably would have been around the time when I did your original program, Grow, Align and Shine, which then turned into Align and Attract. And I remember Martine saying to me, so I was working full time in marketing at the time, and I was going to drop down to 4 days a week. And I was like, oh my God, how am I even going to get clients? My clients just want to come and see me in the evening. No one wants to come and see me in the day. And she just looked at me, and she's this beautiful French woman. And she's like, it'll be fine. They will just come. And I was like, what? No. And I've come from like a marketing strategy background where I was like, no, I'm going to have to do all these flyers. I'm going to have to market to mothers groups because they're the ones that will be available during the day. And she's like, just calm down. I promise you it will just align. And at the time when she said that to me, I was like, she's crazy. No, there's more to it. But she was actually planting a very important seed of consciousness in my being of abundance and alignment. And then soon after I did your course, where you were talking about similar things of aligning, and I was like, this, and also obviously with the healing work that I do with clients, I know if you want to shift something externally, you've got to shift your own internal energy. That's what we've got control and ownership over. Um, and anytime I did that, I would just see these natural evolutions and shifts. And bless her, she was right. The moment I dropped that day in corporate and opened up that day, just organically within a couple of weeks, without me even doing anything, people started to pop in going, oh, have you got a daytime session available? So for me, that was also around creating space. So I think there's a balance in that as well of alignment, space. Am I pushing too much? Trust, flow. It's like learning how to be in a dance. And now, as I've mentioned, I'm going through another evolution in my business. And when I start to feel like I've outgrown or something's coming to completion, I personally start feeling really uncomfortable. Like I might get a bit irritable. I might have clients that come in where they're not respecting my boundaries. And I'm like, right, I'm getting called from all levels here. Something's got to shift and change. And it's taken a while, 10 years to start to trust in those little growth urges and experiences. But this is where, in doing the align and attract process, I will come back to it at times of growth and be like, right, what would I love to do next? Doing the alignment process, finding out where my block is always fascinating, but then sets me on a path. It might not happen instantaneously, but it gives me the pathway to go, okay, this is now what I'm working towards, because sometimes it just takes time for things to organically come to completion and for the next thing to fully drop in. So that's why I love your process, Kerry, because it really teaches this in a very easy and accessible way. And it's also why, for all of the Reiki masters that I've trained, your Align and Attract book is like part of the required reading for those that are starting their business, because you've literally gathered that 10 years of experience, delivered it in the book so that people can just be aware of the common things that everyone goes through, particularly I think as women when we're starting our own businesses.
Absolutely. There's so much we can talk to within that. But I want to go back to what you said, like you about the alignments stuff and beginning that journey when you joined my course before Align and Attract was called Grow Align Shine. Then when I did create Align and Attract, you upgraded so that you could join that program. So what I would love to know is, first of all, like what really attracted you to want to learn more about alignment and clearing your own blocks and aligning to your goals in your business? And then what were some of the changes that you have noticed over the years? But even recently, when we were connecting, you were saying you've been doing some more alignments again.
Mm,
So just share
yeah.
a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So I was first attracted because I was doing another online business course at the time. And while I know I did that to really connect to the network of women that had come together, I liked the content, but coming from a marketing background and having a marketing degree, there wasn't a whole lot of newness in the content. I was like, oh, I know this. What have I paid this big chunk of money for? Oh, it's the network. There was an incredible, vibrant group of women that had come together that were all kind of at the start of their businesses. And it was incredibly inspiring for me to be surrounded by like-minded women that weren't necessarily running the same businesses, but were wanting to birth or having a community. And that was also the birthing of online businesses, and that was super exciting. So I loved that program for connecting to women. But when it came to the content, when yours came up, I was like, nah, this is what I'm looking for. Something that is holistic, because I know that there's no compartmentalization between business and myself, particularly when you run your own business, and particularly when you do the type of work that I do as a healer and a facilitator. Like if I'm not on top of my own stuff, it shows up in my clinic. Like I'll have clients coming in manifesting the same things I'm doing. So there's no hiding in my life, really, ever. So I was ready to just embrace that and go, no, no, I really want to dive into that. And you were the only one doing that work at the time. So it was just like answered prayer. This is exactly what I'm looking for. And then in doing it, I was like, no, this just feels right in my body. And then I was getting the results.
Mm. And what kinds of results would have you been noticing? Can you recall? Because this is a few years ago now, but what kinds of actual shifts within you and then in the external world were you kind of noticing?
More alignment with the right type of clients. I think when I'd started, I was like, I just want to serve everyone, like everyone. And then I remember like it would have been a module that we went through, I think, which was aligning to your ideal client. And I was like, oh, I'd done that work before, I guess, in marketing, but you had a different approach to about it that I really just liked it. And it just felt very natural and organic to go, okay. And that really planted a seed. And then the other game changer for me was the pricing alignment. Because
Mm.
up until that point, because I'd been teaching things from a modality standpoint, obviously there's industry standards where, back in the day, back then it was like $50 for a Reiki session. I think I was charging 40, um, and was always basing my pricing based on looking out in comparison. Whereas I remember having a one-on-one session with you and you kind of just dropping this boom of no, you can align your prices to you and the offering that you're doing. And then I remember when I kind of remember the price that came through, but I was just like, so triggered. I was like, no, that price is not right. Like, I can't charge that. And we obviously then did the healing work and the alignment work of what was in the way of that. And I think at the time, like all of this, even motherline ancestral stuff came through about being a woman in business, having permission to charge, being permission to be authentic and just to show up and be like, this is it. But then the key was that that price was then aligning the right type of clients that I wanted to work with. So it was a big pivot shift of rather than having to show up for everyone. No, I'm just showing up for those people I'm meant to be in service to that are going to hugely benefit from what I can offer. And they're a joy and a delight to work with. And that was a foundation that stayed with me. And I continually come back to it. I can definitely be a bit of a workaholic. I love my business, I can be a bit obsessed with it. So for me, finding those boundaries is really important because sometimes it can turn into a slippery slope where my business is bossing me. And I think it was everything that you'd seeded. And then when you released the book, it was such a reminder for me of, oh gosh, I've got to stay on top of this as like a seasonal thing to check in because I'd let it slip. My business was bossing me. I wasn't being the boss of my business. I wasn't creating a business that was in alignment with my whole life. I turned my whole life into my business. So that's why it's also been important for me. And I know for people that I've referred to your work or other women that I know that run businesses, that's a common wound and a common thing that will tend to happen. It's like the business is the baby and it just takes over everything. So
Yeah, that is
coming that
so
points of
true, isn't
alignment.
it? Yeah, and I just want
Yeah,
to go back as well to what you said about attracting clients, because that's been a really beautiful theme through our discussion, is that it's the really claiming like who it is that you want to work with. And it's like those qualities that you mentioned, it's people who want and need what it is that you offer
yeah.
and who are really going to be a delight to work with, who are going to be delighted to work with you. So I do have a podcast episode on aligning to attracting your ideal clients. I'll put that in the show notes. And I have one on aligning to pricing. So in that, yeah, I
Yeah,
go through some of the things Sarah's talking about. So you might like to check that one out if you haven't already. So, yeah, along the way, there will have been times that you have noticed that you're out of alignment. And you have already touched on this because you said you'll start to get these experiences that tell you something's not quite right. So, can you share any examples of times that that's happened and then what you do to bring yourself back into alignment to get back on track?
definitely. So sometimes I've noticed over the years clients will dry up. So I won't have any clients, and that's unusual for me. So then I'm like, okay, something's going on. Now, almost always in those cases, it's spirit coming in and going, Sarah, pause. You need to have a break. You need to rest. You need to get your energy levels back up. And then often then when I make those adjustments to work-life balance, the influx comes back in. Sometimes I'll get a run of students or clients and bless them. I'm very grateful for them, but they will trigger and push my personal buttons, which then I've got to do the work of shadow. But sometimes they come in and they're a beautiful irritant to help me to grow to the next level or just a clarification of, hey, I don't think I want to work with this type of person or it's not my skill set. So I've gotten a lot better over the years of referring on. I love referring on. I love my clients to work with multiple people. Sometimes I'm just like, I don't think we're the match and I'm going to refer them on. And so, other things that will happen for me, if at any time I'm resenting doing work, that's a massive red flag for me because I love my work. I love supporting people. So, if I'm waking up in the morning where I'm like, ugh, I can't be bothered today, I don't want to do this. If that happens on multiple days, I'm like, something actually needs to be addressed here. And then, yeah, anger, irritation, depression, anxiety tend to be my little clues. I've been a big emotional eater over the years. I love having a wine. But if those things start escalating, again, I'm like, okay, what's going on? Something needs to actually shift here. This isn't feeling right. And as I was sharing with you before we got on the call, there's been a body of work that I've been teaching for a really long time. And I taught it on Saturday and I was like, oh, there's something just not right with this now. And it's not with what I'm teaching and sharing, but I'm no longer in alignment with it. I was like, my heart's just not in it anymore. So I've got a choice point now of whether or not I continue or if I trust this little knock knock that's coming in, because I know if I ignore it, those knock knocks are going to get louder until I have the courage to go, nah, it's time to put this body of work to rest. I've been getting signs for the last 3 years, and now it's time to actually action it. But as a business owner, it can be really scary to nuke a whole body of work that's an income stream because it can sometimes feel a little bit like, oh my God, career suicide. But I'm reminded by my spirit team of multiple times over the last 10 years when I've had this come up. It's like, we've been here before. It's now time. There's so many signs when you're paying attention of where the next step is for you.
Totally. And what I'm hearing in there is really developing that self awareness and really
Yes.
trusting in that felt sense in your body and your body's ability to tell you when something is not right, when something is coming out of alignment. And rather than pushing through that or
Yeah.
ignoring it, or maybe applying more strategy to that and thinking that's
Yes.
the problem, it's like maybe this isn't quite right for me. Maybe I need to look at my direction moving
Yeah.
forwards, or what it is that is really underneath these
Yeah.
feelings that I'm experiencing. Would you say that's right?
100%. And this is why the alignment process is so awesome for this, because when I did an alignment around it, I was like, oh, it's super clear for me. And then there was another aspect of my business because I've got an online shop where I sell products. Last year that was going gangbusters. And then I noticed this year, I'm like, oh, that's slowed down. I wonder what that is. And it done an alignment. And what was coming up was, issues around exhaustion, and part of me not really wanting there to be lots of orders coming through because then I was going to have to go to the post office and do packages. And so the message was, you need to structure that so it's more easeful. Then when that happens, it'll be more flow. But that also had triggered, something's got to shift in the business. I can't do everything. I'm multi passionate. Like, I do love doing a whole lot of different things. And so I've also then got to be aware of sometimes when new ideas come through, that I'm not just doing it to create for creation's sake. So again, that's why coming back to the alignment process is important, because sometimes for me as a creative, I just need more play in my life. I need to be more creative in other aspects of my life, not in business. So again, having the alignment process just to come back in as the discernment, and also the intuition hack to get out of my mind and go, oh no, this is actually what's going on in my body. And the body's always going to tell us. It's amazing.
I think that's so interesting as well for someone like yourself who is so intuitive, but then you're still like, I still go back to the alignment process, which is obviously what I teach in Align and Attract, because that, like the specificity of that, like how specific it is, it can really help to point you at the block and
Yeah.
make that very clear what it is, and helps you to be able to shift it. So, thank you so much, Sarah. How can people connect with and work with you?
So they can find me on my website, spaceinbetween.com.au. And I'm also on Instagram, Sarah Space in Between, and Facebook, That Space in Between.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I just know everyone's going to love listening to this episode.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Kerry.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. Isn't Sarah amazing? She really is such an inspiring person and has so much wisdom to share. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you could share it with a friend, or you could take a screenshot of the episode and share that on your social media, or maybe even a photo of you tuning in and share an insight or something you have taken away from our chat. If you did want to learn more about alignment and aligning your energy to your goals, including aligning to attracting your ideal clients, aligning to your pricing, take a look at my course, alignandattract.com/course. And if you haven't read my book, you can find that at alignandattract.com/book, and that might be a great place to start or continue creating more alignment in your business. Thanks so much for being here.